The Haunted Narrator. The Night Shift Chronicles. Episode 4. The Lighthouse Keeper's Log.
I've always been drawn to isolation. While most people crave constant connection, I find peace in solitude. That's why the temporary position at Blackrock Lighthouse seemed perfect. 3 months covering for the regular keeper who needed emergency medical treatment on the mainland. Just me, the rhythmic flash of the beacon, and the endless sea. The lighthouse stands on a small, rocky island 2 miles offshore from the main coast. It's one of the few still manually operated in the country, modernized with some technology but requiring a human presence. The structure itself dates back to 1867, a stark white tower rising from black volcanic rock that gives the lighthouse its name. My credentials as a former Coast Guard member helped me land the job. The pay was decent, but the real appeal was the solitude. 3 months away from the noise of everyday life. 3 months to finish writing my novel without distractions. The head of the Maritime Historical Preservation Society, which maintains the lighthouse, gave me a brief orientation. Mrs. Caldwell was in her 70s, with sharp eyes that seemed to evaluate my worthiness. The job is simple, she explained. Maintain the light, keep detailed logs of weather conditions and passing vessels, and perform basic upkeep. The automated systems handle most emergencies, but human oversight is still required. She hesitated before adding, Blackrock has a history of keeper difficulties. Isolation affects people differently. If you experience anything unusual, anything at all, log it and radio in. I didn't ask what she meant by unusual. I assumed she was referring to psychological effects of isolation, something I had experienced managing from my military days. The lighthouse consisted of 3 main sections: the tower itself with the light mechanism at the top, the keeper's quarters built into the base, and a small attached boathouse. My living space was surprisingly comfortable: a bedroom, small kitchen, office, and bathroom, all modernized while preserving historical elements. My first 2 weeks were peaceful and productive. I established a routine: maintain the lighthouse equipment in the morning, write for several hours, then keep watch in the evening. I logged weather conditions, recorded the few vessels that passed nearby, and made small repairs as needed. Each night, I fell asleep to the rhythm of the waves against the rocks and the clockwork sweep of the light above. On the 15th night, I discovered the hidden logbook. I was searching for a specific maintenance manual in the office when I noticed a loose stone in the wall behind the desk. Curious, I pressed it, and a small section of the wall clicked and swung inward, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was an old leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. It was a personal logbook kept by Thomas Wendell, the lighthouse keeper from 1896 to 1897. The official logs were all stored in the Maritime Historical Society's archives, but this was different, a private journal never meant for official records. The first entries were mundane: weather observations, notes about maintenance issues, complaints about supply deliveries. But on November 17, 1896, the tone changed dramatically. It began again tonight. The tapping. Always in sequences of 3. Always from the rocks below the east window. I searched with my lantern but found nothing. No driftwood, no animal. Nothing that could explain the sound. In the following entries, Wendell described the tapping growing more frequent and moving around the lighthouse, from the rocks to the walls, then to the windows, and finally to the tower itself. December 3, 1896, the tapping followed me to the top of the tower tonight. 3 quick taps, then silence, then 3 more. When I called out, they stopped immediately. When I turned to continue my work, they began again, closer. Something wants my attention. As December progressed, Wendell reported hearing a voice accompanying the tapping, faint at first, then increasingly clear. A woman's voice, calling his name, asking to be let in. December 21, 1896, I saw her tonight. Standing on the rocks below, staring up at the lighthouse. A woman in a dark dress, soaking wet, her hair plastered to her pale face. I called to her, asking if she needed help. She didn't respond, just raised her hand toward me. When I blinked, she was gone. I searched the entire island. No footprints. No signs anyone had been there. Have I truly lost my mind? The entries grew increasingly disturbed as Wendell described the woman appearing nightly, always soaking wet, always silent except for when she would whisper his name. He began to recognize her. January 7th, 1897, it's Elizabeth. God help me, it's her. My Elizabeth who drowned 3 years ago when the Meridian sank. My Elizabeth who I failed to save. But it cannot be her. The dead do not return. Yet she knows things only Elizabeth would know. She whispers of our cottage in Portland, of the maple tree where I proposed, of the child she carried that I never knew about until tonight. The final entry was dated February 12th, 1897. She is waiting at the door. Tapping. Always tapping. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. She says she's cold. So cold and tired of being in the water. She wants to come inside, to be warm again. To be with me. I've held out as long as I can. Tonight, I will open the door. That was the last entry. According to official records Mrs. Caldwell had shown me, Thomas Wendell's body was found washed up on the mainland shore 2 weeks later. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning, with a note suggesting he had fallen from the rocks during a storm. I closed the journal, telling myself it was obviously the product of a lonely, grieving mind. Isolation and guilt had driven Wendell to hallucination and ultimately to suicide. I returned the book to its hiding place, finished my evening duties, and went to bed, the story weighing on my mind but rationalized as a tragic historical footnote. That night, I woke to the sound of tapping on my bedroom window. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3 more. The rational explanation was obvious, a branch or piece of debris blown by the wind. Except there were no trees on the rocky island, and the window faced away from the sea, toward the center of the island. I got up and looked outside. The night was clear and calm, the sea a flat black mirror reflecting the stars. Nothing could explain the tapping. I returned to bed, blaming an overactive imagination stimulated by Wendell's journal. I had almost drifted back to sleep when it came again. Tap. 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 Pause. Tap. 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 This time, I was fully awake and alert. The sound was deliberate, precise. I turned on all the lights and searched the entire lighthouse, even venturing outside with a powerful flashlight to examine the exterior walls and rocks below. Nothing. When I returned to my quarters, I found the hidden logbook lying open on my desk, though I was certain I had returned it to the concealed compartment. For the next 3 nights, the tapping continued, always in threes, always moving around the lighthouse. On the 4th night, I heard the voice, a whisper that seemed to come from just outside my window.
Let me in. Please. It is so cold in the water.
I convinced myself it was the wind, or my mind playing tricks after reading Wendell's disturbing account. Yet each night, the voice became clearer, more insistent. I began to dread sunset. On my 23rd night at Blackrock, during a violent storm, I saw her. A woman standing on the rocks below the lighthouse, wearing what appeared to be a Victorian-era dress, completely soaked. The wind and rain should have battered her, but she stood unnaturally still, staring up at the tower. I radioed the mainland immediately. This is Blackrock Lighthouse. There's a woman stranded on the island. Possible shipwreck victim. Requesting immediate assistance. The Coast Guard responded that no vessels had been reported in distress, and launching a rescue boat in the current storm conditions would be impossible until morning. Keep her safe inside the lighthouse, they instructed. We'll come at first light. But when I looked back out the window, she was gone. I searched the island for nearly an hour in the driving rain, but found nothing. When I finally returned to the lighthouse, soaked and shivering, I heard the tapping again, now at the main door. Tap. Tap. Tap.
Please.
Came the voice, clearer than ever.
I'm so cold. Let me in.
I stood frozen on the other side of the door, remembering Wendell's final entry. My hand hovered over the lock. Who are you? I called out.
You know who I am.
Came the reply.
I've been waiting for someone to hear me. So many keepers, but few who listen.
What do you want? My voice was barely audible over the storm.
To come inside. To be warm again. To finish what was interrupted.
I don't know what compelled me, but I found myself asking, "Are you Elizabeth? Thomas Wendell's Elizabeth?" Silence followed, longer than any before. Then, not a whisper but a clear, cold voice.
I have been many names to many keepers. Elizabeth to Thomas. Catherine to James before him. Marie to Philip before that. I am whoever you need me to be.
What happened to Thomas Wendell? I demanded.
He joined me. They all join me, eventually. The sea needs its tributes. The lighthouse must be fed to keep its light burning.
A chill that had nothing to do with the storm ran through me. "I'm not opening this door,"
You will.
the voice said with terrible certainty.
If not tonight, then another night. I have nothing but time. The loneliness will grow. The isolation will deepen. In the end, you'll open the door just to hear another human voice.
She laughed then, a sound like water filling lungs. I backed away from the door and barricaded myself in the radio room, maintaining constant contact with the mainland until dawn. I reported a mental health emergency rather than explaining what had actually happened. By noon, a relief keeper had arrived, and I was on my way back to the mainland. Mrs. Caldwell wasn't surprised when I explained I couldn't complete my contract. She simply nodded and said, "You lasted longer than most." "Did you open the door?" "No," I told her. "But I almost did." "Then count yourself among the fortunate ones," she replied. Blackrock has claimed 13 keepers since 1867. Always ruled as accidents or suicides. Always found in the water. "Why keep the lighthouse operational?" I asked. "With the technology available today, it could be fully automated." She looked at me with those sharp, evaluating eyes. "Some things must be watched, contained. The light doesn't just guide ships away from the rocks. It keeps something bound to that place. Something that would otherwise be free to wander the coast." She pressed a key into my hand. "The hidden compartment. Lock it. The journal should stay there." I never returned to Blackrock Lighthouse. My novel remains unfinished. Sometimes, on stormy nights, I hear tapping at my window, 3 quick taps, but I've learned to ignore it. I keep my doors locked, my windows sealed. And I always leave a light burning all through the night.